And we are live. Or at least we should be live. Best here. All right. Okay. Let's post an announcement. There we go. All right. Hello. Doing the second Origin creator stream now until we get some people. Um, I'll just be streaming some regular old development. Let's open up the flow help. I wanted to set up the flow help to ready up it for a potential Discord bot, but for that I have to make it so every single one of the things in the flow help that I want to link has to have a paragraph at the start that describes whatever it is in a simple little tiny paragraph. Yeah, so as we're waiting for people to join, we'll just work on this until some people for the Origin. I have everything set up a little bit better this time. I have a game ready to go as well, and a chat over to the right. So if we ever need to test a data pack of some kind, or if you need me to test a data pack, then I could do that. Do that on stream. But all right. I mean, if you haven't seen the flow help at all, that's not right. If you've never seen the flow help, I highly recommend that you check it out. On the Origin Creator, you can access it by clicking this button over on the top right. And the flow help allows you to gain interactive help in a way that is very similar to just asking questions. Sometimes if you ask a very concrete, specific question, you can get an answer a little bit faster. For example, you can usually I'll link to one of these pages a little bit faster than anyone else might. But sometimes you can access this on your own. So, for example, if you're having a problem with your data pack and you need to fix a bug, hello. If you ever have a problem with your data pack, you need to fix a bug, I can highly recommend this page. You can click on this fixing a bug section, and depending upon what happens, you can actually click on any of these links, and it'll kind of put you through almost like flowchart style help as what you might call flow help. It's kind of in the name. And say your origin isn't actually showing up in game, whatever the data pack is, the origin isn't showing up. Then it explains that you need to check your log, and it also explains how to check your log on this page here. And you can click on any of the links up at the top. They'll always open up in a new tab, so you don't lose your spot. And in this case, this explains how to navigate to your Minecraft folder to find your log. But sometimes you can also use an interactive console, but the way that you locate that is dependent upon the launcher that you choose to use. But say you find some sort of error message, and then you can click on any of these links and it'll tell you exactly what went wrong. So if an origin is unregistered, for example, it's likely you typed the name wrong, and it'll explain to you how you can potentially fix it. More often than not, it could be a typo of some kind. And sometimes if you're not having a problem that can be found on this list, then it'll kind of link you out to the Discords. So if you're having an issue with the Origin creator, you can come to my Discord or ask in the official Origins Discord. But if you're not specifically having one with the Origin creator, then you can just click no, and then you can ask in the official Origin Discord server. There are usually some problems with asking in the official Origin server in some cases, because the people there, if you've ever seen the MGZ command, not everyone uses the Origin creator there. In fact, it's usually a majority of people that don't. So for that reason, it can be very difficult for you to find help there, and so sometimes you might be better off just finding it in uh, trying to get the help on my server. There are some very nice people that can help you out, or sometimes every once in a while I'll pop in and help out. But yeah. Alright, so I guess I'll just stream some of the flow help development till someone gives me a power idea. The way that this live stream will go, is if anyone has a question, if anyone has any problems with their Origin or anything along those lines, then what they can do is they can just send me a message in chat. How do you make this power? How do you do this? Or why is this not working? Something along those lines. And then using that, you can I'll just show you how to make it through the Origin Creator Live. And in this case, I'm also going to attach them to an Origin, which I guess I could probably do now. I'll just add a temporary Origin. And then whenever someone needs to know how to make a power, then I'll just put the power into this Origin, and then I can put it into my game. I have it pretty much set up so that way I can very easily put it into the game, and then should be pretty good on that. So once again, if anyone has any questions or anything that they would like to know about a specific power or something that they're not quite sure how it works, then just let me know. All right. So for now, to set up some of the links for the flow help. Actually, I'm not quite sure that flow help itself. I'm not quite sure that this is really possible for every single first paragraph. It might be better if I have a bot just to link out and kind of give. It is kind of hard. Maybe I can put like another link in here and just call it summary or something like that. I feel like that's a lot more work that probably couldn't be done on stream. First power. Making mobs angry at a specific mob or player is quite annoying to make. And then making a power, good way to make a power fly. Not in the creative. Like levitation of slow fall. It's quite fast. Okay, so we'll start with the mobs. The mobs being angry. I actually have a page on this in Flow Help. So you can, if you ever need to figure out how to make a power, you can click on the Flow Help. You can access it through the Help button at the top, or you can click this Help over on the side. You click on making a data pack, and then use a specific power. In here, I have something for changing mob hostility. When you click on that, you'll get some examples for certain powers that allow you to change mob hostility. The easiest one, it's a lot easier to make mobs ignore the player, which can be done through mobs ignore, Opugly, mobs ignore. And this is a separate mod, which kind of like Pakui, you can add it into your game, and it gives you an option for kind of more features that you can utilize in your Origin. So this power in specific takes an entity condition and a bi-entity condition, both of which are optional. You basically choose one or the other. And this allows you to decide which hostile mobs can ignore the player. Now, making mobs angry at a specific mob or player is a little bit more difficult. I do link another mod called Robin's Apolly Editions. And in this mod, they provide a little bit more flexibility Um, go to the wiki. I guess maybe I should probably change. I should add a link here. Yeah, Apugly is really nice. It's very useful. And I recommend checking out add-ons in general because they add a lot more powers that are usually not available by default. And in the Origin Creator, you can always use them. I'm going to go over this real quick. In the Origin Creator, if you ever want to use a custom power, this is something that I'll work on a little bit better later, but if you ever need to use a custom power, when you create your power, up in the top left, change this drop down to custom. There's also multiple if you want a multiple power, if you want multiple powers in here. But if you ever want a custom power, you can just do that and type whatever thing you want in here. So for example, if I was doing a Pugly mobs ignore, I can just type that into the box at the bottom here. And then I can put in different fields. So I can do, for example, mob condition. And this is an object, which, let's see what this is. In this case, it's a mob condition. If we want to do entity type, I guess this can be a little bit more difficult. Something that I like to do, I'll make this a little bit easier to access in the future. This was kind of one of the next thing I want to take care of is add more options to this drop down so you can kind of pick between which types of objects you want. Because right now you can just kind of type whatever key and value you want into this box, and in the JSON it shows up exactly as you would expect with a name or an ID and a value in the middle here. But I do want to add more things onto here to add, for example, conditions or entity actions or any of these kinds of things. If you find yourself using a custom power, it'll be a lot more useful to have specific kinds of things in the drop down for that purpose. So that'll be something that I'll be adding soon in the future. But for now, one of the things that I recommend doing is finding a place where you can find, say, a condition or something, and then using that. So in this case, we'll say entity type Minecraft skeleton, and then we can copy paste this by clicking on the box and Control C, and then I can paste it into this box here, and it puts in the fields for me. And this is the same as this, it's just a little bit more wordy here. You can notice that in the JSON code, it's the same thing with type and entity type. Okay, so, but that's only with mobs ignore. Making mobs angry is something that's a little bit more difficult, and I haven't actually found one specific mod to do it. The closest that I have found, let me see if I could find, that's not where I wanted to go. Robin's Apolly editions, if I go into the universal powers, this kind of works based on the concept of goals. Power types, that's what I want. And the idea is you can kind of add goals to entities. In this case, for example, you can add a tempt goal to certain. It's weird the way that it works. It bases itself off of the concept that mobs can actually have powers. And so in some cases, you can use the grant power entity action to give a power to a mob. So by doing that, you can grant certain mobs powers or certain things that makes them do stuff. In this case, tempt makes something notice and kind of move towards you like they were a farm animal. If you're holding up a carrot, then pigs will come slowly towards you. In this case, it's a entity condition on if you're holding a diamond, and whatever entity has this power, if you hold a diamond, then they will be tempted and they'll move slowly towards you. Now I don't actually know what all of the types of goals are, which I might be able to check. Let's see. I mean, in this case, they say the addition of custom goals is not yet complete and not documented, but I'm pretty sure this mod is open source. So if we go back to Robin's Apolly editions, I hope it's open source anyway. We might have to find it on GitHub. Robin's Apolly. Oh, I guess I saw the message now. You notice when you're making your recipe power and loading it back, it makes the already made power as custom. If you want, see, that's a little bit more of a tough thing that I'm thinking of. A recipe power, you're saying. Let's see. If I make a recipe power, that seems odd. Recipe. Make a very simple recipe. Diamonds can be turned into I don't know, like that. Okay, and then you said when you click off and click back on, you might have to send me the link to that power in the future, because I'm not exactly getting the effect that you are intending. Because when I click off and then click back on, maybe if I refresh the page, it does it. No, it still doesn't do it. You might want to send me the JSON power. Oh, importing it back. Oh, see, now that's different. Okay. Importing it back. Okay, well, let me import this then. Just put it here, and then oh, it's still simple. I'm not quite sure why that would happen. It might be a very specific kind of power that you're using. If you want, you can send in the official Discord. You can send. I don't think I put the Discord link in here. We'll go behind the scenes here. Let me edit the description. I'll put the link to the Discord in here for you. Old announcements. Up here. Copy link. There's a Discord. Okay. So if you need, what you can do is you can send me the power in question onto Discord, and then I can try to do some testing on my own. Or if you want to, send like a video or something along the lines, yeah, do it. I would say do it in the help channel, somewhere around there. I probably won't get to it just yet because there's some other powers in here. I do want to cover I do want to figure out how you can use this add goal concept for certain mobs. Okay. So let's see. Okay, add goal. Adds a custom goal. Okay. And then you have custom goals on top of that. This would honestly be almost completely custom. I might have to add something for custom goals. I look here, Robin's Holy Editions. RA Editions. There we go. Okay. Let's see. So if I come into here, what kind of goals do we have? We have an active target, animal mate, attack goal, attack with owner, avoid sunlight, bow attack goal. Let's see. It might be easier just to kind of copy paste this and see what file this is in. Possible unrecognized qualifier. Yeah. Huh. Okay, well, there's no file specifically to do that. Attempt to goal. Let's see. Oh, okay, there we go. So if you ever what you can do with these goals, I might have to link this page and update the flow help a little bit. All of these goals, the way that they work with Robins of Poly editions, I haven't actually used this. You add a power called add goal, or I think there's also you also have the ability to remove goals. Seems like there's also yeah, there's also item usage, but the most common ones are like adding and removing goals. So in this case, if I wanted to add a goal to a mob to make it a little bit more hostile towards a player or certain kinds of entities, then I might want to use the attack goal, or at least the active target goal. And in these cases, you can access those goals by using RA Editions : and then I think in this one, the identifier is active target. So what you would end up doing is using something along the lines of, I'm just going to commandeer this box. You do RA Editions : active target. Now it is a little bit difficult because you didn't add anything to the wiki, but you can see the fields down here. Priority, reciprocal chance, check visibility, check can navigate by entity condition. And I'm not sure what all of the things do. My guess would probably be that by changing active target or whatnot, it would make a certain entity target some other entity based upon the by entity condition set here. You might have a better time going to, if this person has a Discord or something. Let's see, do they have a Discord? Robins. No, they do not. Well, I mean, that's the only thing that I've seen that could potentially allow you to target mobs. There is also the Origin Scare Creepers power for making creepers scared. If we're thinking about moving something away, there was a old thing in the Origin server. Someone tried talking about it before, but let's see. What the heck? Is it not from? I can't look up messages that were specifically from me. Okay. Well, then that's a problem. Maybe it's author? Discord be acting weird. Normally, you're supposed to be able to type from and then the author of the message. You can see your own messages, but I guess Discord's acting funky. supposedly there was some kind of someone was linking out to a different mod that allows you to change mob hostility, and it allowed yeah, Daniel for him. There was some power somewhere, but I don't think the person ever got back. Um, some other mod adds the ability for hostility. Yeah. Some other mod out there adds hostility, allows you to change mob hostility, so certain mobs instantly become hostile, including passive mobs. But I can't think of those off the top of my head. The closest thing you would probably get would be maybe making some invisible mob, like an invisible zombie, and teleporting a pig or some other mob to it. But there is probably a mod, a different add-on mod or something that allows you to do it other than Apolly's, Robin's Apolly editions, which I think that, I mean, personally, I think this is the only one that I know that works like that. Which I'm actually going to fix this. Um, let's see. There's a remove goal power type. Okay, and we'll come into here. Remove goal. Actually, I'm gonna link this. And add goal. This there. Okay, and then that'll be fixed later, so it'll actually be a proper link instead of just a box in the middle of nothing. Just a random box there. It'll be a proper link that you can click on. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure why. I'm not exactly sure as to why that would cause. Or I'm not exactly sure as to what power you can use for specifically making a mob hostile. I wish that there was an easier way to do it. I can only really link to the mob's ignore power as the easiest way to make mobs ignore the player, which I have used in a couple of versions in the past. But as for adding mob hostility, it's a little bit more difficult. Okay. So the second power there that I see, making a power fly, but not in the creative manner. Levitation, not like levitation and slow fall. Not being quite fast, and having the idea to hover. Which does not exclude the Elytra. The first thing I can link to is the fact that when you give the player when you give them levitation, I think level 255, that's the number of seconds. 255. When you give them levitation 255, they stay in the exact same position that they're in. The only problem is if they ever take damage in any way, shape, or form, they'll get launched up into the air. So if I go into survival mode and then give myself that effect, you'll notice I'm at the same level and I can actually float off. So I kind of hover this way. That's a bomb. It's not lead on attack. Vanilla if skeleton shoots hostile before you attack one. It can be very. If you want to also link that power, or that data pack, that might be useful because he might use an add-on of some kind, and I can include a link to whatever add-on he's using inside of or whatever feature he's using there, or at least link to it. But to make passive mobs retaliate on attack, yeah, for that case, you probably want to making armistice. Oh, okay. If you want to link me that data pack though, with passive mobs retaliating on attack, that would be very, very nice. Tried it on command box, it worked. Really strange. Okay. I'm going to talk about the flight power first here. For flight, if you're trying to hover, you could use levitation. Different levels of levitation will cause you to go up or down. With levitation 255, like I said, you kind of stay in the exact same spot. The problem being, if you ever take damage of some kind, so I'll summon a zombie. If he attacks me, notice how I get launched up into the air. And that's something that happens whenever you take damage or anything in general from there. But, I mean, I don't know if that's a feature that you want or maybe don't want. But it's kind of baked in, unfortunately, into the nature of the power. Here. Oh. Also, like, fall damage. Attribute to knock... Immunity to knockback. Now, that's an idea. Can I grant myself an attribute for knockback? Knock generic knockback resistance. I have to add some sort of weird thing. I'm going to use MC Stacker for that. Immunity to knockback though. Okay. If I set up a give command to give me, say, a piece of dirt that... Oh, they're not going to let me... Maybe I have to use like a piece of armor. You know, say a diamond helmet. Modifiers, there we go. Say I add an attribute modifier for knockback resistance with an amount, I believe it is... I think 1 would give me full knockback resistance. Well, let's say I set it to 10. I'm not exactly sure on that. And then I give myself this in-game. Okay. Yeah, this has knockback resistance on it. So if I game mode survival, and then summon a zombie now, after I give myself the levitation effect, so now I kind of float. If I summon a zombie now, it still launches me up into the air. So unfortunately, the knockback resistance does not solve that problem. You still get knocked up into the air whenever you take damage. And I believe that it's proportional to the amount of damage that you take. So the more damage that you take, the higher you'll get launched up into the air. What you might actually be able to do is if you get hit, then, and if it does, you could incorporate... I guess you could technically incorporate it into the power. Every time you take damage, you get launched up into the air. You could actually incorporate that into that power. Or you could probably try to negate the damage and let's see, effective. You could also try giving like an effect. So I believe instant damage. No, instant damage also causes you to fly up into the air. So it's probably every form of damage. It just kind of send you higher up into the air. And I don't exactly know the reason as to why. But It is unfortunate. The other thing is, if you want to actually, I think there's an existing slow falling actually existed before slow falling itself, the power. Because if I do something like 244, I actually slowly fall down. This is the levitation effect. I can jump, and notice how I'm slow falling. Slow falling existed this way, and this I think I've seen like one or two maps use this before the slow falling effect was introduced. So depending upon the level of levitation that you give, you can cause someone to slow fall at a different rate. Now, something I haven't tried is giving a effect slow falling with an amplifier of 255. Okay, that's unfortunate. It seems like that doesn't have any effect on it, on the rate at which you fall. Maybe that's too high of a power, because slow falling 1, you fall like this. Slow falling 2, you fall a little slower. And I think from there on, it's about the same rate that you fall down. Yeah. Slow falling doesn't actually seem to be affected by the amplifier on it, which is very unfortunate. But, levels of levitation to apply on shift button press. Well, it's not quite like that. It is kind of like negative levels. I would honestly, if I did levitation 255, which I think is technically level 256, which is just level 0 in this case. It's very weird, but it does act like negative levels of levitation. With with amplifier level 255, it kind of remains the same, so you'll stay in the same spot. But with amplifier level, say, 254, you'll slow down at a very slow rate. But if you change that, you have to effect clear notice that I have to effect clear every time, because if I add, say, another lower level, it'll be unable to apply the effect, because I have a stronger levitation effect already applied. And for that reason, you have to clear it before you apply levitation again. But in this case, if I said 254 was kind of almost like -1 for levitation, 253 is slightly faster on top of that. Or 252 is even slower off of that. And I believe 128, I'm not exactly sure on this, but I believe 128, yeah, 128 is the equivalent to the grounded power. Notice how I can't move. I can't really jump because the effect is so strong negatively that it's almost throwing me into the ground. But I believe that on the opposite side of things, 127 is the fastest you can levitate up. Can't teleport myself fast enough. Let's set it to day. Okay. So unfortunately, that's probably the best that I can think about doing. With creative flight, you'd kind of have to deal with that. Anything from levels of levitation 254 down to 128 are all negative. And so the 254 is -1, 253 is -2, so on and so forth. So it's effectively like negative levels of levitation, where the strongest is 128. And if you give clear, if you give -28, then you'll kind of get sent down really quick. I don't think I can fly this. But if I release space, I actually fall to the ground faster than gravity in general. So if you were to turn that into a power, as an example, you might have a maybe an action over time power, which constantly grants a different level of levitation depending upon, yeah, like you're saying, a shift button press, or positive on space, because you can test when you're holding space using keybind. As an example, I guess I can make a little small power for that. We'll say this is a float power of some kind, and in this case I'll use the action over time, which is, I think action over time is probably one of the best power types. But we want the entity action in the middle here to be affected on a certain condition. If the condition is that we are shifting, so actually I'll say interval of 1, and then I'll use an if-else condition. So down here, depending upon, maybe if-else list, depending upon if you're holding shift or holding space, different things will happen. So in this case, I have it set to an interval of, I'll do 5 ticks. Every 5 ticks, the effect will be applied. And then the first thing that I'll do is an action on the condition that we are holding a key. I'm not exactly sure if that's a thing that I can do. I might have to use active self instead, but I'm pretty sure there's a power type for this. I might have to go to the wiki instead. Close these out. Key active. Well, see, that's the thing. I was pretty confident that there was a condition that actually lets you check if a key is being held or not, but apparently it does not exist, which is unfortunate, but yeah, I guess that's fair. We'll just have to use a different power. I'm going to use a multiple power because it'll be a little bit simpler. I'll say up for active self. And you're right, we can use the continuous on here. And this will be when we hold shift, which will be sneak. So while we're holding key.sneak, we will apply a entity action at a held ability. Yeah, I think that this is the only way to do a held ability, as far as I know. Because I really thought that there was a condition for keys being held, but I guess there's not. Okay. Give me a moment. Resources to different levitations. Yeah, you would kind of have to do that. Maybe the easiest way, let's say I added a resource. Take a resource here. Resource. And then the minimum being, I don't know, we'll do -10 and then the maximum 10. Or maybe just to make this simpler, I'll do 2 and -2 and 2. Start value 0. And in this case, we can grant an effect based upon the resource. Like we can grant different levels of levitation based upon that resource. In this case, we'll just say effect for this power, and then I can use the action over time. Here with, say maybe a 1 second interval just for the fastest effects, or maybe 5. Yeah, I guess I'll do 5. You don't want this. You don't want this to be too small, like 1, which is the minimum, because it could lag out the server. But let's say entity action of applying an effect. So we'll apply the effect levitation. Forgetting if that's how you spell it. Levitation, yeah. And then this is the duration in ticks. Since we have a 5 second interval, 6 resource types. Yikes, that's insane. I think we only need 1 resource here, though. 1 resource at the top, and then this. So I have 1 power for the resource, and then another power for the effect, which will be based upon the resource. We'll apply different levels of amplifiers depending upon the value of the resource. So for that case, I'll use an if-else list. And in that, I can put a condition on each of these powers, which is based upon the resource. Where's resource? Resource. So I'll take the resource, which in this case, I guess I gotta name this float. The resource in this case is float underscore resource. That. And compare that to, it should be equal to, I guess I'll just go in a list. So this one, compared to -2, and if it is, then I will apply the amplifier, let's say 253, something like that. Okay. And then I'll do the whole thing again for -1 with an amplifier of 254. And then I'll do it again for 255 for 0. For 1, it can be just level 1. And then for 2, it can be level 2. Okay. Yeah. And so based upon the effect that is given, based upon the level of the resource, will have different levels of levitation being applied in every case. Okay. Now that's the effect power. Now as for the things that can change that resource, let's say we have up. That'll be an active self with a continuous key. We can also have a cooldown on this. Okay. So maybe we have it so if we're holding space, this one's up, so key.jump. If we're holding down space, then it'll continually activate this power, but we have a cooldown. And we'll say the cooldown is say it's a full second, maybe. So you have to be holding it for a second. I'm thinking, actually, I think it'll be easier if I change these to be -20 and 20, and then make these if it's less than, say, 15, 5. Yeah, I'll do that. So, or if it's less than or equal to 20, and then if it's less than or equal to 10. So it'll take about a half a second of holding the key down for it to speed up. Or maybe that's not what I want. Maybe I want it to be more 40. Yeah. I guess I'm just trying to deal with the semantics of this power. Yeah. Okay. So if it's less than or equal to negative 20, then we'll apply the maximum strength levitation downward. If it's less than 0, then we'll just apply the smaller levitation effect. If it's equal to 0, then we'll apply, emergency. Well, good luck with that. If everything's all right. Okay. If we are equal to 0, then we apply 255. If we are greater than 0, I guess this should be greater than. This one should be less than. Yeah. So if the resource is negative, then we'll fall down. If it's very negative, negative 20, then we'll fall down at a stronger rate. And then the same thing is applied for positive levitation values. If you're going up, then the levitation is greater. Otherwise, if it's greater than or equal to 20, then we'll get the stronger levitation effect. Okay. And so I guess what we can do then is every time a key is not held, so this, I'm just going to change this to a regular old action over time. Every time no key is held, which we can't really test for, but it will no key. Every time no key is held, I'm going to use an if-else thing here. We're just going to, every time no key is held, we're going to reduce the resource and make it closer and closer to 0. If no key is being held, then it'll just every tick go closer and closer back to 0. So in this case, float resource. If it is less than 0, or if it's greater than 0, then we want to change the resource and add -1. Otherwise, we want to add 1 to it because it's negatives to make it back to 0. Okay. And, oh, wait. No, that's actually not quite correct. Okay, wait. If it's not equal to 0, so I'll have another condition appear. Resource, float resource. If it's not equal to 0, then we'll slowly return it back to 0 every tick. The resource will be returned back to 0 if nothing is being held. Okay. Now, we have a key for up, and in this case, if we hold the key using active self, and the key can be key.jump, continuous. Every time we activate the key, which will be every tick, we will add to the resource. It's change resource. Where is it? Change resource. We'll add 2 to the resource because this will be subtracting 1, so this will add 2 and it'll result in a net of 1. Okay. And then finally, we'll have 1 for down. And if we hold key.sneak, then we'll add -2 to the resource. Okay. It's a little complicated, but what I'm basically doing is I have a resource that stores the speed that I'll be going at, and then that speed will slowly return back to 0 if I'm not holding any keys. If I am holding a key, then it'll slowly either increase or decrease, depending upon the situation. So if I'm holding the space key, it'll increase. If I'm holding the sneak key, then it'll decrease. And depending upon the level of that resource, if it's less than or equal to -20, it'll be a strong downward force. Otherwise, if it's just negative, it'll be a relatively downward force. If it's equal to 0, which is the resting state, then you'll just kind of float horizontally. Or if it's positive, you'll go up. Or if it's strongly positive, you'll go up even more. Okay. Float. Now I'll add that origin back. I don't know why the origin got removed. Put that back. Test origin, float. And then in here, we'll put... Okay. Now I'll just go ahead and put this into the game. And I don't know why, but for me, the reload hasn't been working, so I'll just save and exit out and then come back in. And now I'll set my origin. Okay. So now I have a constant levitation effect. If I hold shift, I slowly go down until eventually I stop. If I hold space, then I slowly go up. Cool. Now, I honestly might tweak the levels of this. I might have to tweak, I might have to tweak some levels of this. You might want more resources than this. And I'm going to apply a couple. I'm going to apply a stronger level of levitation. 250. And say this one's to 250. Actually, I'll do 250 there. And then 245. And then 5. That might be too strong. We'll see. I think that's pretty good. So that's kind of like a flight power. Well, it's fast. Yeah, that's funny. You can hold shift and that'll decrease you down, or you can hold space and that'll make you go up. Okay. And you can configure the speed that you go up or down based upon the power in question. And you can configure the timings for it as well. But I'll go ahead and put this, after the stream is done, then I'll put this power in the... I'll put this power into my Discord. But notice this is not creative flight. If I go into survival, then I can go up and down. Now here's a question. If I touch the ground, do I instantly die? I do not. Okay. That's good. Sometimes levitation powers have acted funky, and so I was curious if there would cause the fall distance to reset. If you ever find problems with fall distance, you can use the entity action, set fall distance. You can just set it to nothing. Set it to 0 constantly. So if I put that on here, I could say no fall damage. And then, actually, I think there is a specific power for no fall damage. I'm not exactly sure what it is. But the way that I always... oh, it's modify falling, I think. Yeah, anyway. Yeah. clear this. Well, actually, modify falling might be a better way of doing. I'm saying to use levitation, but now that I'm looking at it, modify falling might actually do the same thing. I just seen it now. Let's see here. Okay. Do. I guess, well, anyway, sorry. If I come into here and do the action over time power, there's an entity action for setting the fall distance. So if I go down to set fall distance, you can set this to 0 constantly as many times as you want. This will negate fall damage. This power here will negate fall damage. So I accidentally changed the wrong power here. This one's the down power. Should be -2 E dot slow. Okay. Add velocity would also be do some magic with state levitation. Yeah, it could, but I would honestly recommend probably using levitation instead, because it is a little more consistent. Adding velocity just kind of randomly kind of just shoots you up into the air. It's not really controllable. Levitation will make you go up at a constant rate. Add velocity kind of keeps you consistent. You might be able to use something like set velocity. That could work. So this power should work as is. I'm going to go ahead and save this power. I'm going to download this for later. I'll just put it on my desktop. What's the float power? Okay. And then I guess I'll just try a different float power. Actually, I'm gonna try first to see if we do modify falling. If I take modify falling and set the velocity to 0, because I think that modify falling. Yeah. Falls at a speed of 0.01 or 0.0 slow falling spread. Oh. Maybe I need to do -1 actually. I'll try that. So if I use this pack, I don't have the right folder now. So I have this folder open. Maybe. Okay, let's see. We modify falling. Oh, I'm going up. Well, that's also another way to do it, I guess. Modify falling with a negative value brings you up into the sky. Okay. Well, let's set it back to 0 then. I guess it is multiplicative. Okay. Modify falling. That does seem to actually have the same effect. And Modify Falling doesn't have the same problem that Levitation has. Because if I take damage here, I don't get launched up into the air. Well, hey, how about that? That's definitely a better way of handling it, that, then. So instead of using Levitation, you can use Modify Falling. Ooh. Well, if that's the case, then it might be simpler to do... I think here. Hold shift and space with Modify Falling. If I made that, I'm pretty sure when I made Modify Falling negative, it kind of slowly increased block by block. So if I made this -1, and then went back into the world. It does increase a little bit at a time. Yeah. And I don't think that's exactly what you want to have, what would want to be happened. Because it's kind of just like increase, 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 increase. Now my head's in the clouds now, apparently. Let's try set velocity. Or modify velocity. I don't think that's what I want. Set velocity, which would be an action over time thing with the entity action set velocity. If that is even a thing, which it doesn't look like it. So I don't think there is a set velocity power of any kind. There's no way to really set your velocity directly, which is kind of a shame. Because adding velocity doesn't really always do what you want it to. It is just like a temporary whee. And so it doesn't really work all the time the way you want it to. So I guess just Levitation is really the best way of doing it. And in that case, I can probably put in the float power. So I'll put the float power back in from the JSON file that I downloaded. And instead of using these negative values for Levitation, I'm going to use the... Oh, wait, I can't. I have to have different powers for it instead. Okay. Though there are a couple of changes that I would want to make to the power anyway. Okay. So I'll just close out of that. Yeah. So if you're not holding any keys, then it should decrease back to 0 slowly. But I actually don't know if that's what would be wanted. If you want to make it so if you're not holding any keys, it goes back to 0 instantly, I'm not exactly sure of the best way to do that. You'd probably have to have another resource for whether or not certain keys are being held down, and then use that resource, which could be a 1 or a 0, depending upon whether the key is being held down, to detect, kind of use the key as a condition in that sense. If that makes sense. but let's see. Up key and down key. Okay, so no fall damage. We will do up and down separately, based upon conditions. So if the resource, where's the resource? Resource. If it's positive, it's greater than 0, resource, then we will apply an effect, which I'll just do act of over time with a rising action, which the rising action applies when the condition becomes true. So if the rising action will take place when the effect is true. Actually, do I want that? No, never mind. My brain's doing weird things. If we're gonna apply an effect, then we want to make sure that it gets applied every so often. So every 5 ticks, we will apply the entity action, apply effect based upon one condition, which is also going to be the resource here. If we've been moving for a full second, then I actually want to apply a stronger level of levitation. So apply effect, Minecraft levitation for 6 ticks, 1 tick more than the interval up at the top. I'm actually going to hide the icon. Probably don't need to show the icon or particles. Kind of seems a little silly to do that, to show those. But if it's a stronger effect, we'll do something like levitation 10. If it's a weaker effect, so we're not up to 20, then we'll do levitation 5. Okay, that's up. If we're going down, so the resource is negative, instead of doing action over time, we can do a modify falling, which in this case we'll probably want to do down slow. Where's modify falling? Modify falling. There. And then we'll do another one for down fast. So down fast. So if you're moving fast or moving slow, if it's less than or equal to -20, then we will make it so. Oh, hey, 3012. Yeah, I've been kind of tired as well, but right now we're working on a float power. So if you hold the space key, you go up. If you hold the shift key, you go down. If you don't hold anything, you stay level, so you don't move. If okay, so we have down slow and down fast using modify falling instead of levitation. I guess we also need one more for freeze, which will be if the resource is equal to 0. So if you're not moving at all, then you want to do modify falling with no velocity. So you remove all velocity. If you are slowly going down, then I guess there's no modify falling at all. You just kind of fall at the same rate. Or maybe that's not what you'd want. I guess probably you'd want slow falling. Trying to think. Maybe if you're holding shift. Is modify falling equal to 0 does exactly what you want. What you'd want when you want to stay level. But what if you want to fall down at a constant rate? That would probably be slow falling. So maybe if you're going down quickly, you don't have any effects at all. You're just kind of falling due to gravity. And if you're going down slowly, then you have slow falling. Or maybe you just always have the slow falling effect on. And depending upon how modify falling works, yeah, that seems like a better idea. So if I do 0.5 on the velocity, it should make me slower as I'm falling. Whereas if I am moving down quickly, I'll do 1. I think in this case, it'll work normally. I'm just going to grant myself slow falling. Slow falling. This will just be an effect. So action over time with the entity action apply effect, and the effect being slow falling. And since this is a constant effect, it might be better to make it so the duration is much longer. So 5, we'll do maybe 10. Maybe we'll just do the maximum, which I think is that many ticks. Something like that. Extra 0 on there for good measure. Okay, let's try this. Let's try this power. Gives me constant slow falling, and I'll go up or down depending upon whether or not I'm holding the key. Okay. Whoa. That's a very strong downward effect, but it's definitely not correct. And it seems like I'm actually slowly falling down. It's kind of hard to show. But if I fall off this cliff over here, or maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just crazy. Yeah, I think I'm just crazy. Okay. So modify falling. This power seems to work. It's if you hold up. Notice how there's a speed difference. If I hold up, it's slow until I've been holding it for a second, and then it stops. Okay. Now holding shift with modify falling seems to not have the effect that I want it to. Which is very weird. I could make it so you have slow falling and you're going down only slowly. Maybe I'll do 0.01 if you're moving down slowly, because that's slow falling, or 0.08 if you're moving down quickly. Try that. And of course, if you're going up, you just get levitation. That seems to work, but it almost seems too slow. In that case, I could probably make it go even faster. 8 normally, and then 16 otherwise. It seems like modify falling actually sets your velocity directly. And it's not a multiplying factor. That seems like it's too strong. Try those values instead. That seems about right. It seems like I'm going at the proper speed. And it doesn't have that weird side effect where if you get hit, then you fall down at a slower rate. Yeah. Now, if you don't, I'm going to save this power instead. So this will be the float power. There's a lot of things to this. We'll save the float power. If you don't want the weird effect as it's kind of slowly going up and down, you don't really need the resource. There's a couple of other ways of doing this by using modify falling and different combinations of resources. You would have to use continuous to make resources that are dependent upon keys. I think the easiest way to make a key condition would be if you make a multiple power, have a resource on one of them, and then a continuous on the second one, which... Wait, no, you would need 3. You would need a total of 3 powers. So 1 power would set the resource constantly to 0, but the second power would set it back to 1 if the key is being held. It's a continuous, so it'll constantly active self and it'll set the key consistently. And then you can use that resource as a condition to determine, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to go up? Am I going to go down? What am I going to do next? Or if you want to increase or decrease a resource, you can do that as well. Right now, I'm kind of naively just increasing and decreasing a resource. In order to check if it's no keys being held, you would have to make a resource for each individual key. Yeah, okay. So that's the float power. Let's see if we got another power. You were talking about an armor stand power that doesn't work when you're trying to rotate an armor stand around. Armor stands spin around you. See. So, armor stand spinning around you. Set my origin back to normal because otherwise this is going to be a little difficult to manage. Okay. So if I want to teleport. If I want to teleport an armor stand around. What kind of teleporting do you mean? Do you mean just kind of like you want it to spin around, not constantly going around in a circle around the player? Because if that's the case, you'd probably have to do some kind of trigonometry or function thing. Let me see. Do you have a data pack in the channel? Oh, you do. You do have more information here. Okay. insert. Okay, ability to summon multiple armor stands, showing off particle indication, rotating around the player in a line of 3 armor stands in total. If collided with an entity, it will cause the player colliding to take damage. However, if the inner circle is entered, it may result in a combustion reaction, weakening the caster, outburst their powers, control. Yeah, it is a very complicated power. Just an armor stand rotating around the player. Let's see. I'm imagining you would definitely need some kind of trigonometry, but maybe you don't. It is a very complicated power to deal with if you're teleporting entity. So in general, one of the things with teleporting an entity, I'm gonna tag this, tag add, tag the nearest entity, arm stand, one sword nearest, add. Okay. I'm not supposed to there. Okay. Oh. Stupid. Okay. So this is the armor stand at but you wanted it to spin around. When you there's a little bit of stream delay there. Access the this is gonna spin around. That's what the caret notation does. You teleport the entity to where you're looking. But if you want the entity to spin around in a circle around the player, the only thing I can imagine doing, you might want to show me like in command blocks what is being done, or at least a function or what is going on there, because I can't think of a way that you would do something spinning around in circles. Though notation. Actually, maybe. Maybe you could do that. I'm thinking what you might be able to do, if you teleported the armor stand around at, yeah, oh, that's it. You can use relative coordinates in, okay, that makes much more sense. Okay, so you're teleporting, okay, so you're teleporting the armor stand to where the player is, then you are rotating it slightly, then you teleport it forward in the direction it's looking. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Okay. So I can actually make a function for that. So you're talking about 3 commands. I didn't actually know that you could do the relative notation for facing directions, which is actually very nice. I didn't know that you could do that. Okay. But you're having problems with doing it in the power. Okay, let's see. Rising. So entity action over time. Every interval, you reset its position, you rotate it, and then you don't do anything else? Wait. You have in the circle power here, you have entity actions where you're trying to execute a command and then delay execute another command. You don't actually have to delay anything, and you probably shouldn't necessarily delay it. I mean, unless I'm thinking of this wrong, you probably want to delay the whole thing, but you have an action over time, so it's by 1 second. So every second, you want to reset its position, rotate it, and then teleport it by this command. You want to run all 3 of those commands in the same tick. But what you're doing currently is you're only resetting its position and then rotating it. You're not teleporting it to its new position. So what would happen is it would just stay on the player. You would have to have all 3 in order for this to work. Okay, well, let me see if I take this power. I take this power here, upload it, and then I'll make the change that I suggested to make. Just upload it. That seems like a bug. It's not updating the page. It's weird. Well, I guess I'll write that down. Uploading JSON doesn't update page. Oh, okay, my bad. So now that that's fixed, thank you for that. There we go. So if I make that one change that you were talking about, or that I was talking about, where you shouldn't have to delay this at all. You should be able to just run 3 commands. You reset its position, rotate it, and then finally you should teleport it back to its original position. So we do that. Actually, you wouldn't need to do this part. You just execute as Wait, let's see. Execute as these entities. Run TP. You'd have to do execute as at. I believe that's it. Okay, we'll try that. So this should just work as is, because it's just the same float power. So if I take this, why does it always do this? It just removes. Okay, that's it. Let's save that there. I want to see what powers I have. I don't have any powers. Right, because I have to set my origin. That's right. Set it back to this. Okay. And so how does the power work? Let's go back. If you want to explain in brief how the power works, I mean, how it's supposed to work. Is there just supposed to be particles standing or spinning around me right now? We'll say video. I want to make sure my particles are on. So if I F3, there's no other armor stands around me right now. It's not completely correct. Okay. You activate a cooldown, you see. I am going to break this armor stand. Break this command block. And now the armor stand will forever be in the ground, and no one will remember. But this armor stand will be missed. Press block. It's gone. Goodbye, armor stand. Okay. Dependent on a resource. Well, okay. Let's see. Is there a way that I can make it just kind of spawn the summon armor stands instantly? Each rising action. Yeah, okay. So if I take this and then go back to the game. I need something I can quickly activate, so I'm just gonna copy paste this. I'm kind of like completely rewriting the power. Well, where's active self? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for active self. There we go. And if I take a key of some kind, oh, that's just the origin's primary key. That should just summon an armor stand. Okay. And then I'm just gonna remove the condition here. And so it should just spin around regardless of what happens. Just to test to see if this works. Now, I'm also seeing that this might not work in multiplayer. This seems like it could only be, so there you go. They're spinning. Spinning around. So it seems to be working just fine. I mean, the main part is just changing this entity action thing in the center to just use these 3 commands. If I want to copy paste this for you. Yeah. Realistically, I mean that is a really cool idea. I didn't realize that you could actually rotate I didn't realize that you could rotate based upon where you're facing. So that's kind of cool. So if that's the case, then I can actually give myself another repeating command block. And then teleport. Say if I teleported myself. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I think I'm locked. Hold on. Set block. There we go. When in doubt, if you ever find yourself in a problem like that, something that I often might do is I'll just do a giant fill command of all the blocks nearby, and I'll just set them all to air like that if I ever have a problem with a random command block. But let's say I teleport myself. I gotta execute. Execute at Neptune. Execute as nearest player at run teleport. Okay. And this will make me face down. It applies a constant force. I can also like teleport slowly. So if you want an origin that constantly requires you to look down, more useful, you could use this as recoil. So every single time, say you fire a weapon or whatnot, you could actually have it where it kind of applies some recoil jittering upwards. That's very strong effect. I don't want to cause too much. I don't want to cause too much motion sickness to anyone that might be feeling motion sickness there. So I want to make sure this is noticeable, but not too bad. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so that's pretty cool. I'm gonna look at this other power. What is this power in question about the custom type? Okay. I'm gonna download this. So somewhere in this power, there's something that allows you to change mob hostility. Or this doesn't seem like the right one. These all seem like recipe stuff. Oh, this was the different power. That's right. So if I import this power into the origin creator, then it will change it back to a custom power for some reason. Okay. So if I put this into here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Change it back to a simple power. Maybe that's why. Origin recipe. Recipe. Okay. No, it seems fine. I mean, if I click off and then click back on, it goes back to simple. It's still simple. But if I import it, then it remains custom. Usually that's indicative that something changes. Okay, so this recipe power has a problem when I import it into the origin creator, apparently. So if I come in here and if I change this back to simple, does it delete anything from the recipe? So recipe, it does. It does delete something from the recipe. This little field here, name. So in general, the origin creator will automatically activate custom mode if it finds a field that it does not support. And that's to prevent deleting any data at all. So in this case, there's this extra name field, which I don't think is correct. This name field here, because if I delete this name field and then go off and then go back, it actually becomes simple. Because when it's loading it, it fits it again. It might be intended that it's supposed to be the Prismarine shard group rather than name, but that would be why that it's becoming. That would be why that's becoming custom. Anyway. Okay. Now I haven't been reading chat. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. So Linux operating system. This is Endeavour OS. It's just an Arch-based Linux operating system. I use Arch, but not Arch. Because I get all the benefits without having to set it up myself. Yeah, so it seems like the reason why... I mean, I can just message it. Since he had to go in an emergency, I will ping him back. I'll just reply. I'll say, the reason this becomes custom on import is because you have an extra name field in every recipe. Although it isn't supported by the origin. Okay, there we go. So if he's having a problem there, then there we go. Now, I really wish that I could find that power. Someone mentioned before that there was a power to make mobs instantly aggro on a certain entity or player, which I wish that I knew what that was, because if that was the case, then I could tell more people about it. But for now, I guess I can't. But the stream is getting kind of long. It's been about an hour and 49 minutes, maybe 50 minutes, an hour, 50 minutes. And, I mean, I think I've covered quite a bit. Like, for example, the float power that I'll put in the Discord, which I guess I could put that in there now. But, not help. I don't need to upload that to help. Showcase. There we go. Okay. So, yeah. All right. Well, it has, I'm glad that I could be of assistance to everybody watching, and be sure to do another one of these streams probably sometime next week. But yeah. All right. Well, I hope that you all enjoyed. I'm gonna end the stream here. You can find the float power that we worked on in this specific in this origin on the you can find the float power that we worked on during the stream in the showcase channel. If you have any other questions, be sure to ask me on Discord, and I'll do my best to answer them. And I guess that's it. So I'll see you guys later.